So I was born in 1993 to a mother who was the strongest woman, period. 6 months after I was born, she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. My father left her, and she had to raise me by herself. I watched her work tremendously hard until 2005 when she had to file for disability. She had to financially provide for us, but she couldn't. She physically could not work anymore. And so we had to move to government housing and basically just live off of disability checks. And so we moved to Elkhart in 2008, and unfortunately that was when there was the recession. And so it was tough. It was tough on the community, it was tough on our families, but I was able to find some good friends and family, and we basically played basketball every day at this Munger Elementary School. And it bred competition, it bred drive, and I absolutely hated to lose. But those people I played with, they were my family. They're my friends to this day, and they're my brothers. So I took those people with me to high school in 2010, and I loved it. I was with my friends, I got to learn, I got to have a good time, but then my sophomore year, that's when everything changed. I remember I was writing a paper, turned it in like 5 minutes, and the teacher was like, yo, you don't belong here. And so he walked me over to the other side of the hall, and I'm in these honors classes with people that I've never met before. I would see them around, but I always looked at them like, yo, that's what wealth looks like. Because they had the nice backpacks, they had the nice shoes, they had everything I didn't. They had all the stuff I couldn't afford. But in those classes, they were my competition. They pushed me to be better just by existing. So they pushed me to go to college. So in 2012, graduated, and I go to Bethel, and I remember I'm filing out my FAFSA by myself. I didn't have any help, and I realized in order for me to go to school, I had to pay $10,000 a year, plus interest every day that I'm going there. And so I was like, I need to keep my college job. So I was working my job from high school, I was working at Burger King, and I got a job in college, I was working in Dining Commons. Walked onto the track team, walked onto the basketball team, all in the efforts to make as much money as possible to not have to pay off all this debt. I knew what budgeting was, I knew what it is, but I didn't know that it had a word to it. So I looked all around, scoured the internet, and I found an app, and it worked well for me. So since then, 2012, I was in debt, and I started working on budgeting in order to figure out my expenses and how much money I can make. So then going forward, I realized that I have to pay off this debt, right? And so I'm working hard, I'm in college, doing my thing, sports, the education, the friendships, but at the end of the day, I have to come out of here with something valuable. So that's when I recognized I need to have a good paying job in order to have a good debt to income ratio. So in 2015, I made the hard choice, made the hard decision. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to PA school. That means physician associate, formerly physician assistant. At the time, they made an average income of $100,000 a year. So I was like, perfect, I'm gonna be able to pay off this $40,000 in debt with this good job. Unfortunately, to that time, I was not able to have the proper classes. So my senior year, I had to change and reformat my whole school schedule. I was taking 18 credit hours. I was adopted by a science department, and I pushed crazy hard in order to get into PA school. I applied to 3 or 4 schools and did not get in. And at that point, I needed to build up my resume, so I lived at the hospital. I was working 70 to 80 hours a week while I was making a little bit of debt payments in order to get the resume, in order to get to PA school. Thankfully, in 2017, I was accepted to West Liberty University, and at that point, I realized I had to pay $70,000 in debt a year in order to go to the school. And that was all on loans. And I loved it. I loved going to school, I loved the education, but at that point, I realized I was experiencing true exile. From high school to college, now graduate school, every time I went up the ladder of education, I was more and more alone in terms of being a minority. There was no black males, basically black people, the higher I got up. So after I experienced that true exile in West Liberty, I was ready to go into the world and be a PA. I knew I had $175,000 in debt, and I needed a plan to attack it. So I stumbled upon Dave Ramsey, and I read his book, 20 Money Makeover, and it was all about making a plan, get out of debt. So I realized I need to be committed. And that's when I thought about the idea of having a debt board. So every day I would leave my house, I would see exactly how much debt I had and exactly what I needed to do to get out of debt. And the crazy part is every single day that I was living, I was being charged interest. So I was motivated, man. I had to do everything I possibly could to get that number down. That $171,000 was ridiculous. And along the way, I developed habits to help me pay off the debt. So one of the things was avoid lifestyle creep. So I had a good job, I was a PA, I was making good money, My coworkers, people around me were like, hey, get a new car, get some new shoes, get some better clothes, get a new watch. Thankfully, somebody gave me this watch. Get some new glasses. These glasses were donated to me. You know, I had to do everything I possibly could to minimize just paying out expenses. And that's where the biggest thing is with your money. Minimizing expenses is looking at what you need to pay versus what you want to pay. I don't need to have a haircut. I haven't had a haircut since 2019. I only spend $40 a month on things that are fun. I meal prep to save money. I live close to my job, so I don't have to pay for a lot of gas. There are a lot of things you can do, just cut out expenses in your life because you don't need those things. And at the end of the day, I was making good money, but I had to maximize my income as well. Not in terms of making more money, but doing the right things with the money I had. So that's when I stumbled upon financial literacy, literally knowing finances. So thankfully I had good coworkers, good friends, good family around me who knew a little bit about money. And so I was able to pursue those things in terms of education, books, 401ks, HSAs, Ross, backdoor Ross, 529s, all these big words, term life insurance, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I mean, I was put on. And once I learned all this stuff, I realized I had to actually change up my plan. I used to put all the money towards my debt. Every single extra penny went towards my debt. Now first, I max out my retirement. My 401k gets maxed out, my HSA gets maxed out, and all the leftover money goes towards my debt. It's a bit more of a sacrifice. It added 8 more months to get out of debt, which I hated, but in the long run, that's the right move. So why financial literacy? I can't unsee it. I used to live paycheck to paycheck. We got disability checks at the 3rd of every month. I cannot go back to that mindset. Also, when I think back to compound interest, you get $2, $4, $8, $16, $32, $64, the money just piles up. I can't unsee that either. I can't go back to being ignorant. In 2008, my mom got a big disability check, and we didn't know what to do with the money. We just spent it. At the time, everyone had nothing. People were losing their houses, the stock market was down. We should have invested that money, knowing what I know now. But we just didn't know. Also, I went to a private school. I thought I had no other options. I never even considered trade school. I never looked at a craft. I never looked at a public school. I literally thought that Bethel was the only place I could go. I was ignorant. I literally did not know. And I don't want others to make the same mistakes that I did because they're avoidable. People don't have to be ignorant. There is knowledge out there, but you just have to be able to trust it. And lastly, the biggest reason for being financially literate is because of financial independence. I want that I quit money because wealth is not working for 10 years while sustaining the same lifestyle. Meaning you could just go to your job and quit and you'll be straight. You don't have to worry about money again because no one wants to work forever. And lastly, I hate to lose. I'm not losing to those people from Central. I'm not losing to the people I played basketball with at Munger. I'm not losing to any of my previous classmates in PA school. I'm not losing to my coworkers. I'm not losing to anybody. Once I have this information, I'm gonna put it to my life and I'm gonna be straight because I'm gonna be financially independent. So I only have $17,000 left of my $170,000 debt and I'm almost debt free. And it feels good. If I die right now, my family will be straight. There's a certain delayed gratification as well. It took me so long to get to this point, and I see the goal, and I know it's gonna be so fruitful when I experience it. But really, I'm living in every moment. I have to maximize every day. Because like I said, every day I was being charged interest. Back when I first had the debt, it was $22 a day just to live. And now it's down to $170. But every day I'm looking at ways to cut expenses and make little side hustles to pay for that interest. And lastly, man, shout out to Kobe Bryant, the job's not finished. I see the goal, 17K, I could just put my money elsewhere. I could maybe not pay off my debt, but I know I need to do this. I need to grind out, I need to keep going. But as I reflect, there's a certain dichotomy, right? I'm grateful, but I'm also bitter. I thought that going into debt for education was the only option I had, but I just had a lack of information. But I'm thankful for that process, but I'm also angry, you know? I'm humbled, but I'm also proud. I'm like, me of all people, I'm gonna pay off $170,000. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, me of all people, I did that. You know what I mean? I'm motivated, but I'm also tired. I feel like I can do anything I set my mind to, but at the same time, I just need a break. I'm tired. I'm content, but I'm also full of ambition. I'm at peace with what I have, but also I want everything else. I want to grind and get every possible thing else, but I'm content. Almost being debt-free is unbelievable, but at the same time, it's calculated. I thought that there was no one in sight, but literally I have a date to get out of debt. And what was really motivating was as soon as I crossed over to having a positive net worth, I had more money in my pocket than I owed debt. That was it, man. That was unfathomable. But I have more to learn, way more to learn. There's so much information out there about financial wisdom, etiquette, moves to make, and I'm gonna pursue all that. Going forward, I may take advantage of debt. I'm gonna go into debt when I buy a house. I may go into debt when I start a business. But all of that is calculated. It's something that I choose to do. I don't have to do that anymore. Going forward, I wanna invest in others. I need to spread the word of Jesus. I wanna be a resource to my friends, to my family, to my community. I want them to be able to go to me with this information, be like, yo, what do I need to do next? What's the next move after I maxed out my 401k? How do I get an HSA? I want to be that resource for that information. I want to motivate others to be financially literate as well. I know there are other people living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm telling you, there's a better way to do things. I know that tomorrow is not promised, but tomorrow has limitless potential. I may get a haircut, I may start a family. All I know is I want to be there for my people, and I need to help them prepare for tomorrow by being better today.
You can judge me on my past if you want to, but you can't deny my rise, you do it if you want to. I was destined for the top and failing wasn't one to be the one who held the silver medals and the bronze too. I could only go for gold, 49ers when I lock and load. I'm shooting for the top, the accuracy is on the nose. The operation not for once involved a failure. When they tell you just to prep for bad days, then they sell you all the insecurities for clearance. I never asked for that. I don't need the backup plans, and I'll back up that. My response to doubters, the devil be the biggest hater, but I like it, dog. It's at the point I'm nearest being godlike. Like, godlike, pretty, kick the flows messy. When I'm going for the win, I make it real sexy. And you know I'm a good fella, keep it Joe Pesci. I bet you won't check me. Black.
Let me tell the story. The trials, tribulations that was laid upon me. I've been through the fire, through the wire, I held it. I'm thankful I ain't let nothing hit it and melt it. Obstacles and turbulence around me made me stronger for the water that I know could drown me. Why would I climb the hill if I could move a mountain? If you see me moving mountains, then why would you ever doubt him? Head of the class, heading to the places I'll for sure not finish last. My aim too good to keep on trying to make it off the glass. If it ain't bottom net, then I can't never call it cash.